What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Geneforge 1 Mutagen, which is technically a remake of the original Geneforge, which launched all the way back in 2001. However, the remake here, Mutagen, is just from 2021, which makes it much easier to get into the title these days, as you won't have any problems running it on modern hardware, etc. Some of it has been updated to be a little easier to get into as well, but as someone who loves and plays a lot of cRPGs, some of the more notable absences in that genre on the channel are Geneforge and Avernum, both of which are series from Spiderweb Software Games, who has made many cult classic cRPGs. And they have remade them several times as well. Though for the sake of this video, we'll just focus on Geneforge, which, despite being relatively familiar with the series, I have not actually played yet, and most of my familiarity with it simply comes from the fact that I play a lot of these games, and thus it's hard to ignore. But Geneforge puts us in the role of a novice shaper. Shapers are a type of wizard, or magic user basically, that can shape life. This knowledge and ability has granted them supreme power as an organization, as you might imagine, but the crux of their ability is to shape various forms of life that help them, and society at large, with various tasks. So as you might imagine, joining the Shapers is a difficult thing to do, but you start the game having already completed that work, and you are setting sail towards an island where you will be learning to do all this stuff. However, you are attacked on your way there, and wash up ashore of the island of, I believe it's called Susia, which is an island that the Shapers abandoned a long time ago and have since barred anyone from traveling to. And upon your arrival, you discover that in the Shapers' absence, their creations have run amok, which will raise all sorts of ethical questions about people effectively creating life, intelligent life in some cases. As we get just a short ways into the game, we will encounter several different factions of a type of creation known as a servile, all of which seem to have developed some amount of free thought, which naturally puts them at a bit of odds with a shaper who happened to wash up on their shore. So, needless to say, the narrative of Geneforge is inherently pretty interesting. And to that end, you have a lot of roleplay options available to you. It's my understanding you can side with most of these factions in one way or another, whether that be for good or bad. There are like 6 major endings, I believe, with many more variations depending on the actions you take, much of which is handled really well right from the beginning when you get to that first village, and you've already got these intelligent creatures who have formed a society in the Shaper's absence, pulling you in different directions, asking you to take sides, all while you're simply trying to figure out what's going on and how you can get off this island. So right away, the narrative seems really cool, with you being given a lot of freedom to choose how this plays out. However, mechanically speaking, the game seems pretty simple. At the beginning of the game, you pick a character type, though you won't be customizing their appearance much or anything. You'll simply pick between 3 sort of classes: Shapers, Guardians, or Agents. Shapers seems to be the more traditional role through the game, with you primarily relying on your creations, which serve effectively as your party. And then you have Guardian and Agent, which focus more on being able to handle combat personally as opposed to just tossing spells around, which makes these choices kind of boil down to Mage, Warrior, or Agent. The Agent in particular is notable because they rely much less on the creations, which otherwise play a pretty big role in combat. Though, because of all the options available to you, it's my understanding that a pacifist playthrough is possible, so this choice is pretty important. Though, once you get into the game and start earning experience by either engaging in combat or just completing quests, you'll eventually level up, and upon level up, you're given 10 skill points, via which you can increase a variety of skills, which includes both non-combat related things such as leadership and stealth, which will help you avoid combat potentially, or more directly powering up your own creations that you'll be making as you move through the island, on top of just potentially making yourself more capable in combat personally. But the creations in particular are very interesting. So outside of leveling up, in order to learn abilities or how to shape new things, you have to find canisters. Canisters will give you abilities, just as your own personal magic to use, or the ability to create new creations. Once you get a short ways into the game, you'll be able to create creations as you see fit in regards to how much essence you have, which is one of your resources. Think of it like mana, but for creations. Some of it is used in spells, though. But at almost any time, you can create various types of monsters more or less to help you out, and this is largely dependent on your own skills in relation to that, such as the fire, magic, or battle creation skills, which will increase the strength of creations of those type. However, this can be customized a little farther because you can grant various creations new abilities which will increase their level but make them harder to control. Creations that are higher level than you are difficult to control and have the possibility of turning rogue or just running away from combat encounters. So overall, that strikes me as a really interesting system. However, I would tell you that as someone who plays a lot of these games, I'm kind of steamrolling the beginning of this game very, very quickly. Now, my first playthrough here is with a Shaper on normal difficulty, as I imagine that is kind of the intended experience for most people, and with just a little bit of common sense in leveling up some of these skills and focusing on creations, I'm just destroying stuff in combat. But it's possible this will get more difficult later, so the jury's still out a little bit there. But combat is a turn-based action point system with some rules to keep in mind. For starters, if you have a high level of stealth, you can just kind of walk around enemies, as a better stealth rating for you will decrease the radius at which combat actually begins, allowing you to effectively avoid combat by being a little careful. But in combat, we are able to move, of course, and then finally attack, which all costs action points. And as you get a little later into the game, you can do things like cast haste, etc., which will allow you to take multiple actions. And each of your creations will have a large variety of skills on top of the skills you have, which can include things like various forms of magic, which all leads to a combat system that is surprisingly simple. For all the options you're given and everything, I wind up feeling infinitely more capable than the enemies I'm fighting, which makes me curious how the higher difficulties are going to pan out. Nonetheless, I think we'll leave it there for now. Overall, I would say first impressions wise, Geneforge seems like a robust role-playing experience, if a little mechanically simple, because while it gives you a lot of options, those options are all pretty straightforward to use. Though at the same time, it's worth remembering that this is effectively an indie game and a remake of a very old one at that, so there's no voice acting or anything like that for people that enjoy that kind of thing, which means Geneforge is likely to remain a pretty niche title, I imagine. But personally, I do love a niche isometric cRPG, so naturally I'm enjoying the title quite a bit. That is all I've got for you guys today. If you're looking forward to the full review, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. I imagine I'll have this done by next weekend or so, which would probably, under normal circumstances, be a little faster, but I do have to build my new computer this week after my GPU failed. But regardless of all that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.